This is our Shazam movie review on TV podcast industries. Welcome back, DC fans. We are talking about the brand new movie from the DC Extended Universe, or Movie Universe, Shazam, which came out this week in the cinemas. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Gothamites and DC fans. I am one of your other hosts, John. Yes, it's Shazam. I'm going to be jazz-handing it up to the max for this one. Really great little movie. Lots of fun, for sure.
Yeah, lots of fun. Highly recommend going to see it. We will be going to full spoilers for this episode. It's a good laugh, really good fun to get out to the cinema occasionally and see a movie like this where you get lots of fun and lots of fun things going on throughout it. But we will get into full spoilers. We're in a little bit of a weird position at the moment, as some of our listeners will know. We're coming towards the end of our coverage of Gotham, so we have Gotham TV podcast where we've been covering Gotham for the last 5.5 years, really, at this stage.
Yeah, the full 5 seasons. And we have 2 episodes left on Gotham, and indeed on Gotham TV podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And those 2 episodes will be airing towards the end of April. So we're on a bit of a break in those episodes on Gotham TV podcast. I wanted to do something else that we thought would be interesting for our DC fans while we're here. Just to confirm, we will be doing loads more stuff on our TV podcast industries imprint, the place where we keep all of our podcasts. We have Defenders TV podcast for our Marvel stuff, Gotham TV podcast for our DC stuff, and everything sits together on tvpodcastindustries.com. Go over there, subscribe to the podcast. You'll see all of our stuff on there. If you've just been following us on Gotham TV podcast, you'll see all of our Gotham stuff over there as well, and all of our Marvel stuff, and loads of stuff upcoming. To confirm, we did mention this a little bit on Gotham, but we will definitely be covering Pennyworth, which is the upcoming show from the same producers that brought us Gotham. That'll be coming out later in the summer. They haven't announced a date yet, but we will definitely be covering that. We'll be covering Jessica Jones Season 3, the final of the Marvel Netflix shows. Again, you'll find that on TV Podcast Industries. And one additional show that we'll be adding in for TV Podcast Industries, which doesn't fit into either DC or Marvel, is Good Omens, the new show coming from Amazon Prime. That's going to be starring an actor that we know very well from our time on Defenders TV podcast, David Tennant, who starred in Jessica Jones Season 1 and 2.
Yes, absolutely. The Doctor is joining us in our spoiler-filled discussions again, as it were, as we discuss Good Omens. We've discussed him in Jessica Jones Season 1. So it's great to be talking about David Tennant again, as always, such a fine actor.
Yeah.
And so, part of the reason why we're making this move as Gotham and the Marvel Netflix shows come to an end, whilst we're moving to this TV podcast industries, you can call it TVP, TVPI, TV Pod, you name it, any amount of shorthand, is just so that we can cover not only DC, not only Marvel, but also things absolutely not related to those 2 properties as well. So we hope you will join us over there.
Yeah, and Good Omens is coming out on the 31st of May, so our first episode of the Good Omens podcast, the one John was just talking about, will be out on the 1st of June, probably, or 2nd of June, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast to find that as well. Let's get into this discussion of the movie Shazam.
Yes, Derek, what are some of the movie details?
Well, it was directed by David F. Sandberg. This is only his 3rd major feature film. He's done lots of shorts, but he's done 2 horror films in the past. Did Lights Out back in 2016, and did Annabelle Creation, the sequel to the Annabelle Scary Doll movie back in 2017. Interestingly, in this movie, they actually use the Annabelle doll in the background. They have a little guest appearance from her in a moment when Billy's in a pawn shop. You'll see the doll appearing in the movie, so quite cool.
Interesting stuff. The only problem with that for me is I don't know what that Annabelle doll looks like. Spooky, scary, or regular that turns frightening in the dark?
No, very scary, very creepy looking. I will. There's another one to put on the list for you to watch, John.
Yes, another one to frighten my pants off. Absolutely.
Exactly. This movie was written by Henry Gayden and Darren Lemke. Henry has a bunch of projects on the go at the moment, but this is the first one that really has come to the screen. He did do a kids movie called Earth to Echo a couple of years ago, apparently. Haven't seen that one. Darren is probably a bit more well known. He's done lots of kids movies. Did the animated movie Turbo and the final Shrek movie, Shrek Forever After. He did the 2 live action Goosebumps films and Jack the Giant Slayer. And John, this might be interesting to you. He's scheduled to work on the upcoming adaptation of The Tripods, one of your favourite John Christopher novels.
Absolutely. Wow, that takes me back for sure to school. Yeah. The Tripods is an excellent adaptation done by the BBC originally of a John Christopher novel, which kind of he's basically the reason why I am into sci-fi. He did sci-fi writing for kids, for teenagers, young adults. Back in the day, he's a British author, and he did The Tripods. I think he did something called The Divide. I can't remember or The Wall. A really interesting thing about this split between urban areas and rural areas, and how that all works. So kind of these dystopian futures. So Tripods are about this. It's a bit like the War of the Worlds. These creatures come down, but they cap you, so they kind of put this imprint on you, and then you become sort of followers and do their bidding. So great stuff. Yeah, looking forward to that now.
Yeah, interesting to see what Darren does with that property. Hopefully it'll be coming out soon. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for the film?
Sure. After being lost by his mother at a carnival as a child, young Billy Batson has passed through many foster families in his Philadelphia hometown. All this time, Dr. Thaddeus Sivana has been trying to find a way back to the temple of an ancient wizard called Shazam, who denied him the powers of a hero as a child. When he discovers the way through, he embodies the abilities of the evil 7 deadly sins. Meanwhile, after defending his new foster brother Freddy from bullies at his new school, Billy Batson goes on the run again. His getaway on the train is interrupted by the ancient wizard who transfers all the powers of Shazam to Billy. He is imbued with these powers by shouting the name of his hero, Shazam! With the help of Freddy, Billy must learn to control these new abilities and his place in the world so he can save it from Dr. Sivana and the 7 deadly sins.
Excellent. We had to shout Shazam once, didn't we?
Yeah, no lightning bolts, so we're still here. I haven't turned into a caped crusader, so to speak, who's able to do all manner of different superpowers. Levitation, flying, lasers from eyes. I can't teleport, though, but I am fire resistant.
Excellent. I totally got cape envy.
Yeah, it's kind of a pleated cape, I thought. I thought it was very drapey.
Yeah, it's quite cool. I did really enjoy it, actually. The actual style for the character is quite cool. This is a comedy movie, and anybody who's been listening to our coverage of comedy movies over on the Marvel Universe knows that I have developed a little bit of a reputation for not liking comedy, unfortunately. If you have listened to Gotham TV podcast, we talk about Gotham all the time, and there's lots of funny moments in Gotham, and I like the sense of humor that they have on that show. But it seems like the Marvel movies, when they talk about comedy in general, seem to fall quite flat for me. In this, I must say, I would laughed quite a lot at a lot of the things that were going on in this movie, particularly Zachary Levi's version of Shazam, his character, and of course Freddy, played by Jack Dylan Grazer in this film, is absolutely brilliant. You remember him from the movie It, where he played alongside Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things. The two of them had great banter within that movie, and once again he's come back in this movie and he's working with Zachary Levi so well. He's so funny throughout this film. Really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, Jack Dylan Grazer is absolutely phenomenal in this. I just thought everything about him was hilarious. I think just his facial expressions, the way he moved, what he did to Shazam, just the banter, the back and forth was really, really good. But even with regards to Billy Batson, their relationship, he felt the central point of pivot for this movie for me, and he just absolutely captured that so well in terms of the young Billy Batson, working with him, their interaction, and then the interaction with Zachary Levi as Shazam. So really, really great stuff from Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays Freddie Freeman. And yeah, of course, was in It, which he was also the sort of put-upon kid whose mum would constantly smother him to death. So really, really nicely done.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, let's get into our top 5 points about this movie, John. A bit of a different movie, really. We're going to take this slightly differently than the way we normally do. And let's kick off point number 1 with our hero's journey, because it's really Billy Batson's story. I know Shazam is in the movie and he gets superpowers and becomes Shazam, but really the story of Billy Batson is really central to this movie. It's got a lot of heart to it, I think, in this film. We learn early on that effectively Billy blames himself for running away from his mother. Early on in the movie, he's at a carnival with his mom. He disappears in the background and she never finds him again. What did you think of this as the kind of running theme for this character, feeling kind of out of place?
I thought this worked really, really well. It is that kind of fish out of water. It's that person being passed around in the foster care home system in a way. It just puts him at odds. It has that detachment from the mainstream, and it's that outsider's perspective that he brings here. And not only outsider to society, but it's just the outsider to all these different families that he is in and runs away from. That's his kind of common thing here, is that he runs away. I think also, he is searching absolutely intently for his mom, who he lost at the carnival. He puts it on himself. He blames him. You have that nice moment where he's crossing it off his to-do list, from his diary to going to all the different Batson residences to try and find his family. And so this is a really kind of, it's that outsider's perspective. And I think Heroes, they go from being outsiders to helping other people. I think it's a fairly well-worn path for Heroes, but I think this is a different perspective, it being a child, it being from a foster home perspective.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really nice. I also think that Asher Angel, who plays Billy Batson, is nicely understated, because I think ultimately Shazam is the one that is massively overstated. He's there in the red and white superhero suits. He has the big lightning symbol down. Looks almost plasticky.
Yes.
It's really kind of that sort of contrast between the two. Very much a grounded, almost world-weary Billy Batson, but inhabiting the adult form of Shazam is still that big kid trapped in this body. And I think Zachary Levi plays that really well, and Billy Batson plays almost a grown-up in a kid's body really well. That world-weary. It kind of reverses itself. It's like Billy Batson gets to become that kid once he's in the form of Shazam. So I really like this. And of course, as well, having Freddy interacting with him when he goes to this huge foster family after he's run away is really nice. I like I really like this family and what it speaks of bringing, sort of people off the streets from the care home system or foster home system and trying to bring them into a family. So really nicely done, I think.
I have to say I love this family unit. I really like the concept of this. It's the central family have all been involved in the foster care system. We hear that both parents grew up in the foster care system, made something of themselves, met each other, and then decided that this is what they wanted to do, was set up a foster care home for kids that are having difficult experiences in the system. So really good casting here as well. We've got Anderson Cooper playing the father in this family unit. If you watch The Walking Dead, this actor plays Jerry on that show, and he's a real hearty presence on the show. I think everybody wants a hug from him at all times. I've seen him at a few conventions as well, and he just gives the most massive hugs to everybody. He's a really friendly kind of character. So a really great presence in this role in the movie.
Great casting as well,
Isn't
I think.
Just really
to have that person who you just feel you want to get a hug from, and he wants to give a hug. It is that kind of really warm spirit of a man, really.
Yeah.
And really good casting.
Yeah, really enjoyed him in this film, and he was great on screen all the time throughout. A couple of interesting choices within the movie and as part of this hero's journey that kind of came quite unexpectedly to me. I don't know the character very well at all, to be honest. I know him from cartoons as a kid and from Justice League cartoons and games and that kind of stuff, but not many comic books have I read that feature Billy Batson or Shazam. So it was a huge surprise to me that on this journey, when he does find his mother, he finds out that actually when he ran away or when he disappeared in the crowd, she just left it. She did actually see him after he disappeared, saw him with the cops and said, actually, they'll do a better job of taking care of you than I could. And she doesn't want to reconcile with him either. She says, it's not a good time for me. She's got a new boyfriend, she's got a new life and doesn't want to have him back. That seems like a really counterintuitive storyline for this character. You wouldn't see that in a lot of other films. And I thought it was a really good choice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really sort of is not the happy ever after moment with reuniting with his biological mother at all. And it's a really interesting choice that ultimately, his salvation or his family unit does become this foster family where they come together, and he takes part in the sort of family tradition of putting all their hands in to the center of the table, almost like saying grace before the meal. And it's really nice, I think. But certainly, it feels a little strange having his biological mum say, no, I don't want to reconcile. I can actually, in a sense, understand that, maybe because I've heard of that before, where young mums say that someone else would look after their child better. It could be grandparents. It might still be within. It could be auntie and uncles. It could still be in the actual biological family unit. But here, she kind of almost says he will have a better life. But it's that moment where she doesn't really want to reconcile with him, and that's really jarring, I found. But it's certainly something that happens as well, and it's a great difference about this movie that it has this as an underlying sort of track record to what's going on throughout this movie.
Yeah, I think your heart breaks for Billy as well, and it's so lucky that he has this foster family that are there in the background waiting for him to come home and be taking care of him, because it does feel like this horrible moment if, after all of these years searching for his mother, he sees her and she goes, well, you're all right, aren't you? You look good. You're alive. So what's the problem? What do you want from me, kind of thing? She seems like she's in a really crappy place. I like this kind of statement of not everything turns into a happy ending. Not everything's a Disney lifestyle. Guess what, guys? Sometimes people are just a-holes,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it really then, just intensifies Billy's relationship and Shazam's relationship with Freddy here. And I think that is a really nice thing. I think Freddy also is one of those heroes. He's the sidekick, to Shazam and the friend to Billy Batson, the roomie, if you will, in the foster home. And it is great, that he is also this collector of Justice League memorabilia, and it really connects this movie, I think, to the other shows in a really simple way by just simply having him as a fan of superheroes and the Justice League. It's really, really good.
I'd say fans of all the Justice League movies, from Batman v Superman and Justice League and Wonder Woman and Aquaman, all that stuff, I'd say you could literally pour over his collection that Freddy starts to show to Billy when he moves into the room. I'd say you could pour over all of the newspaper cuttings and all the stuff he has on the wall for ages, just finding what they are connecting within this movie. They do a great job of just having loads of this stuff as if you're in a world where superheroes exist, which is sometimes a difficult challenge for these kind of movies. In the past, it has been for the Warner Brothers films, for the DC movies, connecting them all together and making sure that they feel part of the same world. It really does here in Shazam, because these are kids. Of course, they're going to be looking up to these superheroes, these, amazing characters, especially someone like Freddy. We hear early on, I love his first introduction to Billy, actually, where he says, he walks across the floor on his crutch going, I'm terminally ill, I'm going to die in 6 months, kind of thing. He goes, oh no, I'm only joking. But what he is saying is, he is a kid that can't walk properly. He does have a problem with walking, and he looks up to these superheroes, particularly Superman, because he's super strong, super fast. He can do everything. He can fly. And this is how Freddy lives his life, because he's a bullied kid. He doesn't have a lot of friends, and he tries to bring Billy into that world with him, showing him the heroes that allow him to live and allow him to feel strong and allow him to feel powerful, which I love. I love that idea that he really feels like a grounded character.
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's also just to mention that we have a little cameo of another superhero in Superman right at the end of this movie, which is really nice. It's a shame, actually, that, of course, we don't get to see who's inhabiting the Superman suit, because Henry Cavill obviously is no longer in that role. It would have been great if he could have had a little cameo as well here, but certainly Freddy does get a wish granted by Shazam by being introduced, I should say, to Superman in school.
Absolutely, a lovely moment.
Definitely.
Maybe they just didn't have the budget to remove the moustache from Henry Cavill this time. That's all it was. It was Henry Cavill in the suit. They just couldn't remove the moustache, so they just left his head off. A nice little gag in there. Let's get on to the other side of the movie. Point 2, the villain and his motivation. slightly different here.
It is slightly different. Certainly to begin with, I think. I really like the fact that Thaddeus Sivana is brought to the same place that Billy Batson is. But he ultimately is told by Shazam that he's not good enough. He's not pure of heart.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the pure intention. Yet this absolutely rocks Thaddeus to the core, mainly because his father and his own brother are equally sort of dismissive of him, or that's how he interprets what the wizard Shazam says. Because
they're pretty cruel to him.
Yeah, because his own family life it's a family life, but it's one with very little love and one with very little affection. Mm-hmm. And so this warm wizard, in a sense, also rejects him. And this he holds on to, he attaches to it. It makes him the villain. It makes him, or motivates him to find this world again at another time. Once he is all grown up, he becomes Dr. Sivana. This is where he's looking for Shazam's Hall so that he can come back. But this time, it's not to take on the mantle of Shazam. He doesn't want the wizard's blessing, because in that first instance, we find out that there are 7 statues, all representing 7 deadly sins. And a bit like with Ghostbusters, within those are these live kind of grotesque creatures that represent the 7 deadly sins, and an orb that is kind of protected, and the whole challenge that has to be passed is that you don't take this orb of power that or who aren't tempted by it like you would be through the 7 deadly sins, I suppose. It's kind of representative of that. And so ultimately, his motivation is to obtain this power rather than Shazam's good power. He kind of says, no, I'm not pure of heart. I'm the opposite. And so therefore, he takes this orb that Shazam is protecting the world from and keeping the 7 deadly sins sort of locked up and bound. So he releases them, and they are great. I do like the effect where they are this sort of cloud that sort of goes in and out of his body, like he kind of replicates the 7 deadly sins as they come out of his body. And it's all represented by a glowing blue eye when he has all of them in his body. Yeah,
it's really cool. It's an interesting concept. Again, we do hear very often the hero and villains. We hear that concept of the villain is created by the hero all the time. It's a very general statement about every time you've got a villain, it's always created by the hero. This time we find out that effectively the wizard Shazam created this bad guy by telling him he's not good enough. Like, that's really harsh. It's like, come here, kid, maybe you can get the power of Shazam. Actually, no, go home to your family. You're not good enough for this, Dr. Sivani spends the rest of his life tracking down other people that have had this moment, almost like the alien abduction stories. We hear all of these people who've been brought to the hall and then sent away because they weren't good enough. It's really harsh. I don't know whether I like Wizard Shazam very much, John.
Well, it's certainly it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's very much Roman Emperor type thing, where it's like, are you good enough, or should you be fed to the lions? And I think that's the really good thing here, is that Thaddeus is fed to his own lions, his own fears, that he's not good enough, that he's rejected by his own father, who prefers his brother in a sense, and he is lonely. He is, he's rejected, he's ignored. When he tells his father and his brother about being transported to this other world, they dismiss it. And then because of that, an accident is caused. His dad ends up in a wheelchair. His brother, as well, it blames him. So he is a lonely child, even though he has his biological parents. And I think that's the other side of this movie, which shows, biological families may or may not be as good as a foster family. It depends on who these people are.
Exactly.
It depends on how kind, warm, loving, you name it, that the family unit, however you comprise it, is made up of. So I think this is a really interesting part of this movie, and I think there's a lot of heart that comes from that contrast between Thaddeus and Billy Batson. I think also it's really interesting that, the antagonist is an adult, and the protagonist is an adult, but a kid trapped in an adult's body, so to speak. So, you have this kind of really nice dynamic going on. But certainly the villain's motivation, with Shazam, that is a flashback earlier on, and he is now grown up, and certainly going after his father. A real interesting scene there at the Savannah corporate headquarters.
Yes, it's a massive scene. I know there's been a lot of commentary on this particular moment in the movie since we saw it on Friday. I've seen loads of people talking about it. Pretty scary scene. Now, this is a PG-13 movie, so what that means, obviously, is either you're 13 and above, or you go to it with your parents, and I'd say that's exactly the same for me. I wouldn't want a group of 8-year-olds going to see this on their own without a parent present, Every child is different. Every child handles scary scenes differently. This is a surprisingly scary scene. It did seem to come kind of out of nowhere, but it does provide the shorthand of how dark Savannah is and how dark these 7 deadly sins are, I suppose. That moment where he picks up his brother and throws him out the window of the boardroom, huge, quite scary scene. Absolutely. And then we have one of the 7 deadly sins biting off the head of another member of the board, and then all the rest of the board are slaughtered, through frosted glass at a window. Of course, it's not a violent moment, but it is a scary moment, and it's the reason why the movie got a parental guidance and not a universal stamp, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly brutal, and I think you're right. You don't realize, you should. He's got 7 deadly sins in him. He's got all these sins that are looking to corrupt, take over the world. One of them being violence. So this is violence. This is lustful violence. This is all of these different deadly sins sort of taking it out on his father and his brother and the rest of the board members of his dad's corporation. And but it is pretty brutal. And you don't expect that to happen. I think you expect that they're going to die, absolutely, but I don't think you expect him to be chucked out of the window. Yeah. You don't get the blood, and that's probably why it's kind of shown, but you pretty much see someone's head being bitten off, and it really does provide the most brutal part of this movie, because even the final showdown of the villains with Shazam is certainly not as brutal.
Well, absolutely. There are moments throughout the rest of the film when the 7 deadly sins are capturing people and they're holding people and they're holding them back. In this scene, it is absolutely, they just go and kill them. I think it's probably used as a little bit of shorthand because they are trying to do a lot in this film, setting up an entire foster family for Billy Batson, setting up Billy becoming Shazam, all those moments when we find out about his powers. There's so much going on that they actually don't have a huge amount of time to go into the villain's side and to show off the 7 deadly sins. If you had maybe another 10 or 15 minutes spent with who each one of them were, or whether maybe the designs of each of the characters were representative of the 7 deadly sins, so we had each of them going out and possessing somebody with that particular sin kind of thing, maybe they would have done that differently. But it felt kind of like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, that moment where you have a horror director in a comic book movie and he uses his skills doing something like Doc Ock killing all the people with his arms in the hospital in Spider-Man 2. That's what this scene felt like. It felt like, well, we need to establish how violent and how brutal this bad guy is, so here's a great scene to do it with loads of adults around and killing everybody there,
Yeah, absolutely. But again, there's still through frosted glass. It's not bloody violent. It's just brutal violent, I think. And it does feel a little bit of a tonal shift in the movie. It does stand out for that, I think, as well. So it's maybe a little misplaced, but still, as you say, it's more shorthand to just really kind of capture again the villainous motives of Thaddeus, really.
And in a good way, because it does feel like the kind of movies that we watched back in the 80s and 90s, things like Goonies and that kind of stuff, where it did have quite heavy violence in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did have moments where you felt like your main character was going to get killed by the bad guy, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that in the movie either. Let's get on to Billy and his powers, our point number 3, because this has to be the most joyous part of this film, this whole concept of Freddy and Shazam working together and finding out what their powers are. We do obviously have that moment with Wizard Shazam, as he's called, handing over the power of Shazam to Billy because he's good of heart. And one thing I just wanted to highlight, that moment where the wizard Shazam, played by Digimon Hanzo, that moment where he's telling the story of when they gave the power to the wrong person in the past, and you have that version of Shazam in gold with the hood up. That's actually the character Black Adam, who is going to have his own movie coming up in the future. Going to be played by The Rock in a future movie whenever he gets done filming the 75 Fast and Furious sequels that he's been signed up to. He's going to be in this universe. But really interesting that that's the flashback that we have, that moment that the story is told by Digimon Hanzo is of a movie that could be coming out in 3 or 4 years' time.
That's true, actually. Yeah, it's really good. I must say, this moment where Shazam chooses Billy Batson, I think Asher Angel plays this really nicely. That kind of, he's just been transported to this realm or this area, this other world, on a subway train, and he's kind of taking it all in, but he's shocked, but he's not freaking out. I thought he played that really nicely, actually.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Really enjoyed this moment between the two of them. Lots of fun little bits here as well. And of course, we have Shazam with powers. He's suddenly walking around as a grown adult with a lightning bolt on his chest, walking through the streets and has no idea what he's supposed to be doing. I love that his family are at home thinking he's run away again and they're wondering how to proceed. And then we just see him at the window knocking on it for Freddy to come and meet him outside afterwards, because Freddy knows everything about this, right?
Yeah, this is the heart and soul of this movie. Hilarious. For sure. It brings the connection between Freddy and Shazam, Freddy and Billy. It has the absolute comedy value. It's so good where they are checking out, testing the types of powers that Shazam has, that Billy has. And we have that first sort of the park bag snatch where Freddy goes, go and save the woman who's being mugged and having her purse stolen. And just that, he's got fast speed, and in the end, she ends up wanting to give him money so that she doesn't follow her, that she stays safe. Yeah. She thinks he is as bad as the mugger, but it's really nicely done, I think.
I have to say, these little vignettes that they have, these little scenes that they've written, just feel like they're exploring the powers, but they're exploring the comedy of the character as well. I love this moment that he runs to try and save this woman from having her bag snatched because he hears her screaming, but actually it's not her screaming, it's the guy that tried to rob her bag because she sprayed him in the face with pepper spray, and it really hurts, Nice little moment. Then we have the market robbery where they go to buy beer, and it turns out somebody's in the market about to rob it, and then he finds out he's bulletproof by getting shot at. I love these moments where we have, Freddy going, oh, shoot him in the face because we need to know that he's bulletproof, because only kids would do that.
Yeah, is it his suit or is it his actual body? We need to check this out. Shoot him in the face, and you're just like,
what if it is the suit?
It's so good. Yeah. It's and then you see the two robbers being hurled out of the window, just really nicely done. And then they get the beer because they're trying to taste beer, because of Shazam being an adult. They taste it and it's like, that's like sweaty socks, and then come out with loads of sweets. Really nicely done, I think.
Really good fun. We have lightning from my hands, another one of my favorite scenes, when he's standing on the top of the spot in Philadelphia where Rocky had run up the stairs. So they have the Rocky theme playing and he's singing along with it, from my hands, lightning from my hands. It's really good fun.
Yeah, that is so cool.
I was singing it for about an hour afterwards.
Yeah, that's a really great image, and the song as well. You have him trying to leap tall buildings, but he misses the jump and goes straight into the side of the building. You just hear the smash of the window. Really nicely done. We've got flight and super strength as well, as he catches a fallen bus as well. But I like the fact that he doesn't kind of want to save the bus. He's like all the people. He's kind of, there's that childish element of, I don't know actually what to do here, and it's only because he puts his hands up to protect himself as the bus crashes from the overpass that he manages to hold up the bus, and when he goes to put it down, and there's just the cute dog sat there looking at him sort of with his head cocked to one side, and it's like, go, I need to put this down. Really nicely done here.
Great fun. And of course, this is how Dr. Savannah finds out who he is. He's on the news, effectively, so he's able to find out that there is this person with Shazam's powers, which leads to a great fight. The fight in the mall, I think, Really good fun. A nice comment in here that there is a reference to Big, the movie starring Tom Hanks from the 80s, where he's a kid trapped in an adult's body. We have them battle on top of a piano on the floor.
Yeah, that's really
which
good.
Anybody who's seen the movie Big knows that there's a big moment with Tom Hanks playing keyboard piano on the floor. And that has stayed in FAO Schwartz in New York for the next 30 years after that movie came out. It was that big a scene in the movie. So if you're familiar with the movie, you'll definitely recognize that moment. But great stuff. I've heard after the movie came out that the director chose all of the toys that were in there. He had to get them all passed by Warner Brothers because they had to be real toys in the real world that people could actually go out and buy. So we have a great little nod to Batman where he picks up a statue of Batman, throws it at Dr. Savannah, and it goes, "I'm Batman." As Shazam says, "Get him, Batman," you know. Great little moments here that feel really realistic. You know? I feel like, maybe not realistic isn't the right word. It feels like something that a kid would say if he was in this situation. That's more what I mean.
Yeah. So many good references. I think the references, like the Batman one, they feel natural. It doesn't feel shoehorned. Yes, it's a DC movie. Yes, we know Batman is a DC property. We know it's self-promotion, but the fun, the comedy around it, the scene in which it's being delivered, it feels like it could be in any movie.
Exactly.
You know, it's really nicely done.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel forced. It's product placement, but it doesn't feel like product placement.
Exactly.
You know, it's really good.
Yeah, really enjoyed those moments in there. And what we do see is that every time he calls out the word Shazam, he changes back and forth between Billy and Shazam over and over again. I think this is quite interesting. They use it a lot more than I was expecting, probably. You know, there's moments where you see him go into the bathroom because he says, as Shazam, he doesn't know even how to get out of this outfit. So he goes into the public toilet, shouts Shazam as someone runs out screaming, and he turns back into Billy. I thought that was a funny little touch.
Because he doesn't know how to pee in the suit, and he's like, you know, it just so funny. Yeah. The practicalities of a superhero suit provides the biggest form of comedy. It is really well done in that sense.
Absolutely. And then we do find another little moment with another one of my favorite family members, definitely, when he returns home after becoming Shazam and walks into his bedroom, or his sister's bedroom. We see Darla, the younger kid in the house, is sitting in the room as he says the word Shazam and changes back into Billy. So she instantly finds out. It's not just Freddy that knows that he's Shazam. It is also Darla.
Yeah.
And I love that she's asked to keep that a secret, because all good little sisters would.
Yeah, and she's the most talkative one of the kids in that foster family. You know, when we're introduced to the foster family, we have the young gamer kid who's like, she doesn't like silence, so all we hear is her chatting.
Yeah,
you know?
Eugene. Yeah,
Eugene. You know, you get a nice dynamic between these family members.
Yeah, I do love that moment when they finally realise that it is Billy that is Shazam, because of a conversation that they heard or a fight that they heard really between Freddy and Billy at the dinner table. They all realise, actually, this must be Shazam. Billy must be Shazam. And then suddenly we hear Darla going, "Oh, you finally worked it out." And I said nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also because Shazam and Freddy have an argument in front of the TV cameras, and they see it, and it's like, that's Billy and Freddy.
Yeah.
Really, so good, I think.
Yeah. I really love this relationship. I love how it's written, and particularly, again, as we said, the Billy and Freddy relationship stands as a really good friendship.
Really stands out.
You know, I suppose the one thing I find odd is that I think they have their first night together as Shazam and Freddy, and he says to him, "I was a bit of a dick, I know, but now I'm okay." And then they go down that path of him being a dick again. I thought it was a bit unfortunate that they had to explore that a second time, I suppose, of him being a dick and losing all of the foster family that he'd depended on. But I suppose, you know, it does work, and it does bring them all together at the end, because that is the big final battle, right? Our point number 4 is all hands on deck, a familial final battle. Billy really has to learn that even though his mother has left him alone, he's not alone in the world. That's one of the big learnings, big lessons that he has to learn. He has depended on himself for all of these years. Now that he has superpowers, he feels like, well, I can just go out and do whatever I want to. I don't have to go to school. I can make money on the streets from this. I love that Freddy's looking at him when he's doing this performance, I suppose, and going, how much money have they given you? Is it a couple of dollars? How are you going to survive? Really good. But I like that he does have to learn that he can depend on other people. And the other superpower that he has that he hasn't learned is that he can transfer his powers to the rest of his family. When he was given the powers by the wizard, that's such a weird thing. I've not said the word wizard in a movie since Harry Potter. Like, they even reference that in this movie because it's a Warner Brothers movie. They even reference the Harry Potter thing in there, but I haven't said wizard in a film for a long time. Anyway, it does say early on when the powers are transferred, we hear from the wizard that he was surrounded by all of his family, and they all contained multiple powers from various different people. Whereas Shazam has all of these powers together. And when he transfers them to all of his family, each member of the family gets a different type of power, or is specifically good at certain things. We see Freddy can fly all the time. He said he would give his left leg to be able to fly, and he's the one that gets the power of flight.
Yeah. In the wizard's chamber, you have these 6 high-back chairs. He talks about his family, and as soon as it happens, it's just like, that is so cool. I am so glad that these other kids also become part of the Shazam family, and are created here to combat the deadly sins. And it's just really, really nicely done, to be honest. Yeah, you have, Freddy, as you said, that can fly, and loves to fly. Darla, who's like super, super fast. Eugene uses electricity sort of the best. He's got that tech guy that can then harness the power of the electricity. Pedro, who is the strongest, and then Mary's power that doesn't really come through in the same way, so I'm not entirely sure, but I think, again, just generally she's probably super strong and fast, maybe a bit of everything. But I love how they all came together to be this family of Shazams that go to fight the 7 deadly sins. I thought that was brilliant, and it was a massive surprise to me, even though I think it's signposted so heavily. I was just like, I just lost it. I think I was enjoying this movie so much with the interaction between Billy and Freddy, and Shazam. I just wasn't thinking ahead, so it was just a cool moment, which, as I say, in the cinema, when you go, oh, that's really cool, I like that. The film has heart, I think. Yeah, no, definitely. And it's a failing of a lot of superhero movies in the past where they have the main character's secret identity is revealed to all the people around them. Well, where do you go with that? Where do you go in the future of your movies if everybody knows that this guy is the hero? What you have here basically is going, well, they also can be heroes too. He can also share his powers with them as well if he needs them in the future. And that makes them even stronger as a unit. It's a really good choice, Exactly. The Marvel universe has kind of fallen into a bit of a trap where suddenly major people know about the secret identity of their major characters, of the big heroes. Whereas in this particular movie, I love this idea. He can now reach out to the people who are now his closest allies. Yeah. And bring them in the next movie, I hope. But they're all facing off against the 7 deadly sins here at a carnival. And Billy is facing, or Shazam original is facing off against Dr. Savannah. And it's ultimately that they have to get all of the 7 deadly sins out of Dr. Savannah for them to be able to defeat him. And it's all to do with his glowing blue eye. And the one that Billy has to pull out and face off against is Envy. All the others are out doing his bidding, but Envy is the one that's gnarled and jealous and envious of everything. And it's the true representation of Dr. Savannah, really. That's why he's not letting go of the body that he's finally gotten control of. It's something that I do feel is, as I said, a little bit of the failing of the film is the 7 deadly sins themselves as a representation of the bad guys. I do wish they had possibly other bodies to possess so that they could kind of show off what exactly it is about those that are so evil. What is it about the 7 deadly sins that are so evil? So I like the idea that they chose Envy to be stuck into the soul of Savannah, and that's why he's so jealous and why he's so angry and why he hates everybody so much, is because he's so envious of what he thinks everybody else has. I love that idea. I think it's a great idea for that.
But I do think overall they could have straightened that a little bit more in the film for the rest of the Seven Deadly Sins. They just kind of feel like, effectively they're dust particles that can form into demons. That's kind of all that you get from a lot of the rest of them.
Yeah, there's not a great deal of differentiation about them. I mean, you all can immediately tell which one is Glutton, absolutely.
Right.
But in terms of all the others, they all kind of look like the dog statue from Ghostbusters,
right? Yeah.
To me. Now, in that sense, I find that really cool because it reminds me of Ghostbusters and the dog statues with the big kind of chunky sort of shoulders across. It's kind of like a beefed up kind of dog or pooch, kind of thing that's been on a lot of protein shakes.
Gonna watch Ghostbusters this afternoon as well.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those things where they're not really that well differentiated. I mean, I could not tell you which one was Lust, for example.
Right.
But Gluttony, yes, and Envy because he's called out at the end. But that boardroom scene where all of them are coming out, other than Envy, I mean, it's one where I'm like going, I really don't know here.
I think they make a gag about Lust not being as attractive as you'd expect Lust to be. I think that's the only
true.
gag that you see. But again, I wouldn't be able to pick it out after the fact. If you put the photograph of all 7 of them up on screen, I wouldn't know which one was which apart from Envy, because we do have that big moment with that character at the end. But I think that does kind of satiate us for that final battle. It goes on a long time. The fight does go on throughout the city for quite a long time as the 7 deadly sins are being taken care of, I suppose, by Billy's family while he chases after Savannah. So, but I do love that final face-off moment. You have to have a good joke if you're going to make a comedy movie like this, like Deadpool, like those kind of comedy superhero movies. You have to have a good joke. And I love the moment where Savannah faces off in the air against Shazam and starts giving his monologue to him, and he goes, I'm like a mile away, man. I can't hear a word you're saying.
So good.
It's a great little moment between the two of them. Really, really good. But that is our final battle, really. Let's get on to the last bit, the kind of in-jokes and the 2 post-credit scenes that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Already mentioned one, Superman's arrival for Freddy. There's this moment in the movie where, it's that point of kind of conflict between Freddy and Billy, because Freddy's being bullied by these 2 jocks, and he keeps saying to them, I know Shazam, that he will come here, he'll prove that, I'm cool, and he will take care of you. Don't mess with me. And of course, this is the moment when Billy completely forgets that. He goes off effectively busking as Shazam to try and get money. It's where Freddy comes up to him and says, well, how much money have you made? You didn't come to the canteen in school at lunchtime. I was there, egg on my face, effectively the suitcase wedgie, which is really good. And that's mentioned later in the final battle, because Freddy now as a Shazam rescues the 2 bullies from top of the Ferris wheel that is being pushed over by one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yep.
But the way he rescues them is through a suitcase wedgie. Really nicely done. But right at the end, it's lunchtime, it's in the school, he's on his own again, but then his foster family come round him, and then Shazam appears, but he's brought Superman as well. And Freddy has been wearing some kind of Superman reference all the way through this movie.
Yeah, I'm not too sure whether it stands out as well as they intended it to, but we do hear a couple of times when Shazam says, I'm amazing, I'm one of the strongest people in the world, and he kind of goes, Freddy says to him, but not as strong as Superman. You're not as fast as Superman. So there's definitely this kind of love from Freddy for Superman. We see his backpack, his school backpack has a Superman badge on it. He's almost always wearing a Superman t-shirt throughout the film as well. So we know this is his biggest hero, and Shazam has been able to get him there for this final moment, which I just think is a lovely little touch, that he does do something to cement the relationship between the 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
There's loads and loads of Batman references in the movie. Not just that moment of the I Am Batman statue that Shazam throws at Dr. Savannah. There's also the lair that Freddy and Shazam want to buy from the real estate agent, who's just staring at them and wondering what they're talking about. But they effectively describe the Batman's lair from The Dark Knight Rises, the one that Robin found when he was spelunking, where they say it's got to have waterfalls. Oh yeah, waterfalls would be cool.
Yeah, it's so good.
Really good.
The look of the real estate agent is just priceless.
Yeah. Actually, if you heard our Captain Marvel review for our Defenders TV podcast, I did mention that I want people to do things with their credit sequences. If we're going to sit through 20 minutes of credit sequences, do something that will make it fun to sit in the cinema. And Shazam really did that. I love these cartoon drawings that are there on screen that look like they've been drawn by the lads, by Freddie and by Billy.
Yeah, really good.
Shazam meeting each of the members of the Justice League. You see him taking Wonder Woman to prom. You see him beating up Batman. You see him racing against Superman. You know, all this stuff that looks like that the kids are just having fun with this idea of him being a superhero in the world of the Justice League.
Definitely. Really nicely done. But speaking of the post-credits, it was one of those things where, again, like Derek, I'm not fully au fait with Shazam as a character, or some of the characters other than maybe Black Adam around this whole area of DC Comics. But, you know, we have this first post-credit scene where it's a character called Mr. Mind talking through a speaker around his neck to Dr. Savannah, who is in prison, kind of, you know, doing that crazy writing on walls, writing in tongues kind of thing.
He's trying to find his way back to the hall, isn't he?
Yeah, he's trying to get back to the hall, but there is Mr. Mind speaking through a speaker around his neck. Now, I thought this was, and like you did, Derek, as well, we thought it was someone speaking through a caterpillar, but it is actually the caterpillar is described as a master mental manipulator, yes, so Mr. Mind is a talking and manipulating caterpillar.
Yep.
So there we go.
Look, DC, they have some fantastic and fascinating characters, and many that I'm just not used to at all, because obviously with Batman, it's a very grounded character. It's always on the streets. He's always beating up mafia and criminal masterminds. So being in that world for 5.5 years now, we haven't really gotten out to explore a lot of the other universe with Shazam. So yes, this year on the movie podcast that we've been doing, we had a cat that was effectively an alien, and now we have a caterpillar that's a talking caterpillar. So
with mind manipulation powers. Yeah. So
exactly.
really interesting.
Well, we'll see how that's going to go for the next movie. The second post-credit is the joke about Aquaman and how that would never work as a concept. This is where we have Billy as Shazam talking to a fish in a fishbowl and pretending that the fish will understand what he's saying. I love the gag because, again, as we mentioned, Freddy the whole way through the movie is wearing a Superman t-shirt. In this one, he's actually wearing an Aquaman t-shirt because, effectively, as you'll probably tell throughout this movie, this was the one that was supposed to be out at Christmas last year, because there's loads of references throughout the movie.
Yeah.
You know, the whole time they're putting up Christmas lights, there's Christmas decorations in the Vasquez house, there's the Santa Claus. My God, the Santa Claus. The whole way through the film being attacked by Dr.
Sort of
Savannah.
losing his mind, just becoming increasingly crabby and sort of just shouty. So Santa Claus goes from being, you know, the mild old, you know, warm fatherly gift giver to this cranky, stressed out and very, very shouty sort of man who is just losing his mind because everything just keeps blowing up or getting destroyed around him.
His hat gets set on fire and everything.
Exactly.
He ends off being on the news, isn't it? Right at the end, where they have to bleep him out because he's cursing so much about all the bad things going on. But I do think it's a bit of a weird one. It feels like, you know, they've just moved the movie. They moved the movie from being released at Christmas and put Aquaman there, and then didn't give it any kind of changes to the film, which I thought was a bit weird. It's 4 months later now. Aquaman's now out in Blu-ray. It's out for release in at home. And all the references that are in here to the fact that this should have been released at Christmas, none of them were changed at all, which I just think is really weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't reference the fact that effectively Aquaman has made $1 billion at the box office. So this gag at the end that it would never work, and a little wink to the camera, is an even better joke now, I suppose, exactly. Because it made $1 billion.
It made over $1 billion. Yeah, really good. And it's a nice riff. It's not taking yourself too seriously. And I must say, I do think that DC can do that really so much better sometimes than maybe Marvel can. You know, in a sense, just the nature of this movie, with it being so jam-packed full of comedy, means that this is a really nice laugh out loud riff on, Aquaman's powers and the weirdness of that, and the fact that it still works, and that's the great thing about this. And so, yeah, this is a nice second post-credit scene with a really good in-joke here.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of other little notes that were in the movie. Obviously, just to mention John Glover appearing in here as Dr. Sivana's father. You may recognise him as playing another father of a supervillain back from Smallville. He played Lex Luthor's dad back in that show.
Yes, absolutely. Really great to see John Glover there from Smallville. Mm-hmm. Great Smallville.
Yeah,
loved it.
I know. Yeah.
And also one other, which is Digimon Honsu guest stars as the wizard Shazam, making him the only actor to appear in both Captain Marvel films.
Yes, an odd one that people tend to be mentioning quite a lot at the moment is that before Detective Comics actually existed, the character of Shazam was originally called Captain Marvel for a previous studio. That studio went under and lost the rights to that character, and of course Marvel would pick up the rights to a character called Captain Marvel, so that's where they got the rights to the character and created their version of the character in Marvel. But, I love this reference that we have Digimon Honsu appearing in both of the films. He was quite central, actually, in the bad guys in Captain Marvel. So nice to see him in here playing a good guy as the wizard Shazam in here.
Yeah, exactly. So, imbuing Billy Batson with his powers.
Exactly. I think that's it for our main discussion about the movie Shazam. Final thoughts, John? We don't normally have a rating system for our discussions of DC movies. What's your final thoughts of this film?
I love this film. I came out of this movie just smiling, not really knowing what to expect from the character. Yet Shazam as a character, I don't know really anything about too much, other than from maybe the Lego superhero DC games, and Black Adam is the same. And yeah, I thought this was really just jam-packed with heart, generosity, and fun. I absolutely think that Freddy here is complete standout. Really so well done. And the same with Zachary Levi. And I think Asher Angel also I think the three of them, what they do to bring these two characters together is just so well done. And I think at the hinge of that is Freddie Freeman, played by Jack Dylan Grazer, and he is just so funny. I think Mark Strong, he just does bad guys really well. It's a fairly, I think, standard bad guy once you get beyond the motivation of him as a kid and how that contrasts with Asher Angel's character and the situation he finds in. I think he plays a fairly standard bad guy, and you have then the big showdown at the end, but it's imbued with fun, laughter, comedy, some really emotional touch points and genuine feeling of this whole foster family underneath that. I absolutely loved this movie, and as I say, I think any movie for me that, even though it's staring you blindly obvious in the face, you just kind of go, oh, that's a cool moment, when Shazam uses his power to imbue his foster family with the same Shazam powers, was really cool. I absolutely loved that. And yeah, it's just it's good fun. I would absolutely recommend this movie. Dare I say it, I would give it 4.5 lightning strikes out of 5.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a really different superhero movie. I love Marvel movies. I love Batman DC movies, and I love those. But this just, like with Deadpool, there's a lightness of touch to it. It's not self-referential. It's really nicely done.
Good stuff.
So yes. I can't recommend this enough.
Yes.
Ladies, gentlemen, and mind-manipulating caterpillars. It really is, I thought, a cool movie.
Yeah, I have to say there's definitely a moment of watching a movie with John. When I came out, I was slightly critical of some of the story points of the movie, and I was just told to shut up. It was fun, wasn't it? And I did have a lot of fun. I really did laugh a lot in this movie, and that's all I want, really. You can deep dive into all the things that may have been a little bit better if they were done in different ways, but there is so much heart in this movie. It's a different film than ones that we've seen before. There's loads of twists in here that I haven't seen in films in a while, so it felt like a different type of superhero movie. And I'm hoping that with the success of this and the success of Aquaman and the success of Wonder Woman, that we're going to get a new series of DC Universe movies that we can all go and enjoy in the cinema. I really enjoyed this one. I'll definitely be seeing it again.
So we really hope that you enjoyed Shazam as much as Derek and I. Yeah, really good movie.
Definitely. A huge thank you to Claire Payne here for suggesting us doing this review, because we hadn't really intended on doing it. We just gone to the cinema because it was opening night for a movie that we wanted to see. So thanks so much, Claire, for suggesting this to us. It's always fun to podcast, and definitely fun to podcast about a movie that we both enjoyed.
No, absolutely. So thank you so much, Claire, for suggesting that we review this, over on Gotham TV podcast. But of course, remember, subscribe, rate us, and leave a review over at tvpodcastindustries.com, where you can join us on any Shazammy or Seven Deadly Sins podcast catcher of your choice.
I wanted Dr. Savannah to have a better villain name, to be honest, because it was quite difficult to remember Thaddeus Savannah all the way through this podcast. But yes, pop on over to tvpodcastindustries.com. As you mentioned, loads and loads of other stuff coming up the rest of this year. We've got 2 more episodes of Gotham to go at the end of April. New series Good Omens coming on from the 1st of June. The 6 episodes are going to be on Amazon Prime from May 31st. And the last season of Jessica Jones, season 3, will be out this year. And we will definitely be covering Pennyworth, the new series in the Bat universe, I suppose, from the producers that brought us Gotham for the last 5 seasons. And you can get it all on tvpodcastindustries.com.
As always, thank you so much for listening. It has been a pleasure speaking with you. But remember, all hands on deck, and say my name.
Billy. Sorry, Shazam.
Yay. Oh, I've just been hit by lightning. Thank you, and we'll speak with you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.